Hold on. It's spinning wheel here.
Says live for me.
It does?
Uh-huh.
Okay. What the heck? Let's see. Are we live? Oh yeah, we are. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm getting the spinning wheel here, but I guess we are. It's okay. That's not good that it says go live, but it doesn't say that we're live. All right. Well, hello, Aiden Bazzetti. Thank you so much for joining the Carousel podcast again. Everybody, we are on a new platform because Restream has completely shut down and is not working correctly. So screw Restream. So now we're back on StreamYard. And we're here today with Aiden Bazzetti, who is, I think, the chief of something called the Bull Moose Project. But there's also the Bull Moose Institute. So maybe we can start. What is the difference between the Bull Moose Institute and the Bull Moose Project?
Yeah. So from a legal distinction, right? They're separate entities. The Bull Moose Project was the original incarnation of what we were trying to do, which is more of an explicit advocacy for America First principles, legislation, and elected officials. And then the Bull Moose Institute is something new that we've spun up, really to build on the intellectual foundation of where we think the movement is going to go in the next few years. We really want to double down on hosting events, getting people together, because the network and the patronage networks are everything in this movement, especially if we want to continue to grow in the future. And then also develop more educational resources. So when we do meet with elected officials, especially here in DC, we're able to give them the specific things that we want to change, and not just a blanket, yes or no, thumb up or thumb down answer on a specific piece of legislation.
Right. So, how do these? Before we get into what Bull Moose is and everything, and we'll talk about antitrust and obviously Teddy Roosevelt and all that. But why do they do it this way? I'm learning a lot about the DC nonprofit NGO complex now, both from my, we run a branding and content agency that works in this sphere, and also just talking to more people like you and understanding this whole world. Why do you see this so often where it's like there's the institute and then there's the initiative, and then like why does that happen?
It happens, I think, for two main reasons. One is the way the system is set up is kind of weird. So the 501c3 organizations, these tax-exempt groups, they have lobbying limits. So you can only lobby a specific amount, and you pay taxes on it, like, this weird rule. The 501c4 organization is, it's a social welfare, I say the quote, social welfare organization. And those don't really have those kinds of limits. So basically you have this setup where it's usually someone set up the 501c3 first, they're tax deductible, they have support from donors and grant making groups, etc. And they kind of build this intellectual brand and backing and materials. And then when they're kind of more set up, they set up the C4, this advocacy organization that is able to take the research that the C3 produces and actually push and pressure people to put it into action. There's a couple different tactical ways it works, but that's really why it's set up. It's just the weird setup of the tax code, and what you're able to do with your tax exempt status versus not.
And if you give to a C4, you don't get a tax break. Is that right?
Yep.
I see. So what's the point of a C4 at all? Like, why not? What does it give you?
If you have a donor whose goal is to influence a specific piece of legislation, or a member, or organize people, that's more political, they would give to a C4. Like, these are people that don't necessarily care about a tax deduction explicitly, right. And they have a more I wouldn't say necessarily political goal or even ideological goal, but like they have something specific that they want done, and the C4 is the best vehicle for that, and that's why they give, not for the tax deduction.
Right. But why not just have it be like what does being a C4 do for the organization? Why not just be a company? Why not just be like an LLC?
The lobbying.
Oh.
Yeah. And the C4s are allowed to give to super PACs. They're allowed to like you can register people on partisan basis through the C4 to vote, which you can't do on the C3. The C3 has to be like fully nonpartisan. You just register whoever shows up. The C4 can be a lot more targeted. So they have like they have specific benefits, and there's without like getting too niche, there's a 527 organization which are expressly political. The C4 is, but those donate, like the 527s, those are the political action committees, these weird like niche groups. All of their donors are public. The C4 donors are private, the same as the C3. So as a vehicle, a 501c4 has a lot more flexibility as a vehicle for influencing pieces of legislation, for funding other groups, for carrying out partisan or pseudo-partisan activities on a limited basis. That's why a lot of people end up going with those. For the project on our side, the reason why we started the C4 first was because it's really easy. I mean, you create a company, like you incorporate, and then you sign a document to the IRS that says, I'm going to operate as a 501c4 organization. And then, you wash your hands and you're good to go. The tax deduction costs upwards of $20,000 to $30,000 at least.
Oh, wow.
And you're waiting for years.
Damn, that's what a C3 costs. It costs $20,000 to $30,000 to make a 501c3.
It depends on your lawyer. Some people get lucky and they have a lawyer friend who does it pro bono. But these firms, I mean, it gets expensive to make one. So you have to have that money basically guaranteed. And then you're on the list for at least 12 to 18 months before you get approved.
Wow.
So it is a whole process.
Wow. I didn't realize that a C3 was that expensive. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So Bull Moose Project, not initiative. I like the two taglines you have for each, by the way. One is relentlessly advocating for a Sorry, I'm back. What, dude, did it just die?
Yeah, it did.
The whole stream just died?
No, we're still live. You disappeared for like 10 seconds.
What in the world is going on here? No, I'm back. Bulkington says I dropped. Yeah, sorry, dude. Restream is the real problem here.
It's the censorship regime, man.
It really is.
Coming after you.
They're finding me. No, so I think it was because I insulted American Express. I said I canceled my American Express card, and suddenly all my stuff stopped working because they came after me. No, but okay. The two great taglines for the Bull Moose Project. It's relentlessly advocating for a dominant American future. Mm-hmm. And then what's the tag for the Bull Moose? The other thing?
It's conservatism with the courage to govern.
Yeah, conservatism with the courage to govern. So, okay, let's just start. Why Bull Moose? I know that was Teddy Roosevelt's name. So why is that our leader? And like, what is your guys' platform?
Yeah, so the first thing, Bull Moose, right? I mean, everybody knows it's Theodore Roosevelt, very much Theodore Roosevelt inspired. We actually got some flack for it on both the right and left because the progressives love to claim him, right? Because the Bull Moose Party, the official name was the Progressive Party.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was. And so now I would say progressive means something very, very different now than it did 112 years ago, 114 years ago. But the conservatives also would be like, why Bull Moose? He cost Republicans the presidential election, and we got the worst president in history. Fair point. Like I can't really contest that. We chose Bull Moose not necessarily only because of a policy platform proposed.
Wait, who's the worst president in history in this thing that you just said?
Wilson.
Okay, so why is why is Wilson the worst president in history?
Because he was the one that like really mainlined this international liberal order post World War One.
Is that true? I literally did not even know this.
You
find something new every day. So okay, so this is like people saying Wilson was the bad guy. So okay, can you just explain that a little bit? Like, why was Wilson? Because everybody says it's FDR was the communist or whoever, but I didn't realize that Wilson was recognized in that way. Sorry, that's probably really ignorant of me. But
no,
why is he the guy?
A couple things. I mean, the Federal Reserve came under him, which a lot of people do not like the Federal Reserve on the right wing. He started up the League of Nations, so this post World War I settlement. They wanted to create an international organization to prevent war and settle disputes, and it failed pretty miserably. There's also like niche arguments that America messed up the post World War I negotiations. I'm not the expert on this, but I have heard people criticize, like the French and the British wanted to punish Germany to the fullest extent. And we see this in the records of the peace conference, and which some people say set the stage for the next one. I wouldn't really honestly know the specifics of those, but there's this chain of events with Woodrow Wilson, like Federal Reserve. He was also very, very progressive. His platform was, he ripped off a lot from Theodore Roosevelt, and we can talk about kind of where TR was going towards the end of his life politically. It was a little bit strange, I'm not going to lie. But I think that the biggest indictment of Woodrow Wilson was he's like our Biden in a way. He literally had a stroke, and his wife ran the White House. He was mentally incapacitated for the last part of his term. There's a whole thing there. It's insane. It is actually insane. But he won because Theodore Roosevelt split the vote. Technically TR got more votes than Taft, who was a Republican candidate. Which my point is, why didn't the party pick him again? That we're just rehashing a century-old thing at this point. But we chose Bull Moose because not really necessarily because of the 1912 Progressive Party positions, but because of who we thought TR was as a person. Like the Bull Moose figure, the strenuous life, this very dynamic person. He was the one that coined the phrase bully pulpit. He was the one that coined the phrase lunatic fringe, if you're familiar with that. His impact on our language and the impact on the media is just mind-boggling for the time period. And we saw a lot of that in President Trump too. So we wanted to reflect this Bull Moose spirit of taking life by the horns and just forcing these changes and being proactive in matters of governance and trying to turn things around. So that's where we got the name from. We started supporting candidates, talking to candidates and members of Congress that we thought shared maybe not 100% of the policy issues that we stood for, but that spirit. We thought we could talk to them and hopefully nudge things along, which I do think turned out to be true in a few respects. But yeah, it's really that vigorous spirit. There aren't a whole lot of people like that, especially in American politics, and that's what we wanted.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely true. I'm somewhat familiar with his life. I know about the, almost dying in the Amazon. I know about the being shot and continuing to speak. I've dug a little bit into him. He seems totally awesome. Had a weird voice, right? Had a weird high voice, I think. And yeah, the Rough Riders. Mm-hmm. I want to say he had a quote that I can't seem to find, but somebody told me once that about the Anglo man needing war and blood in order to continue forward. And that's like why he started the Rough Riders and like invaded Cuba or whatever for like no reason. Which I totally agree with. I think without war, man is a really sad, pathetic creature. And I think people used to think that, but what?
No, I think that quote is real. I can't remember which place it comes from, but if you look at his old speeches, he talks about the Anglos a lot. It's like one of those early 20th century like progressive. I mean, it's like race science, like they're very much like part of the like in vogue at the time. So they talk about Anglos and like the other races of Europe a ton. It's like in almost every single speech that he gives.
Yeah, yeah. Totally. Yeah. So yeah, he's this kind of powerful figure. All right. So what is the platform of? So right, we're not. Okay. What kind of weird political stuff was he doing in the end of his life, Teddy?
He was. Part of it was very much like in favor of popular sovereignty. So they wanted the direct election of senators, which we have now. They wanted recall elections, like primaries and things like that, which are all pretty standard now. We wouldn't think of it as a radical change. But then he was also campaigning when he was running for president for the third time. He wanted the public to be able to overturn the court, like the judiciary, which is a really fascinating idea. I think most conservatives would be opposed to it now. I think it's probably the wrong thing, but it was a different time, right? The country was completely different then, and he had a lot of grievances about the courts intentionally slowing things down and like halting policies, and we see a lot of the same complaints today. So
it's fascinating. I didn't know that. That's a fascinating fact that he wanted a popular veto for the Supreme Court. Because I mean, well, the interesting thing is the other two branches do have a popular veto, right? So why does this one not have a popular veto? I will say I went to law school. I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm a member of the not by trade, by training, and I'm a member of the California Bar. So I read all those cases and everything. I would say that's an insane idea, though. Yes, I don't think I would support such a thing, but it's a very populist notion. I mean, that being said, when you got Ruth Bader Ginsburg up there fucking everything up, screwing everything up permanently, like, maybe that would be good. But yeah,
there were a lot of grievances about the courts, about the party elites at the time, and that's he was basically running on a wholesale, completely changing the political and legal system of the United States, which freaked a lot of people out. There are also some other things in the party platform that, I think the only thing that we don't have that was in the platform is a national healthcare system. But literally everything else, like the FDA and like workplace safety laws, like they basically made the modern day, even though the party technically lost, because it was an ideological victory for them over like the 10 years after his run and his death. They just like swept through both parties. But yeah, it was like, I think he might be like the first really modern president, because he was the one, he started the White House press room. And I know we're like getting weirdly into the details of
this stuff is what is good. I like these details.
Cool. He was the one that started the press corps, basically. He just kept the reporters around him the whole time. Before that, you didn't really talk to the press that much. He also he streamlined presidential campaigning, because it used to be when you were the presidential nominee, the party elites would pick you at convention, and then they would do all the fundraising and campaigning for you, and you would just chill at home, basically. Lincoln did some debates like here and there, I think, but Roosevelt, he was taking the train cross country, giving speeches at every stop. I mean, literally everything that he did in American politics was revolutionary at the time.
They call that a whistle stop tour.
That's right.
Cool. All right. So what's your platform?
So
Tell us how this translates into today. What is the platform of the bull moose stuff?
We basically have four main planks. We want fair markets. So, and for us, that's fair trade, both domestically and internationally. We want to be able to steward our lands in a responsible way, not locking them up for production, but not totally like ripping everything apart to build more suburban developments that are ugly, right? And we want to be able to be energy dominant, to have low prices, and basically improve the cost of living, affordability, and the American community writ large. These are pretty broad platform planks. What it breaks down to is we support rigorous antitrust enforcement. We support like more pro-family policies like child tax credit. We support bringing manufacturing back into the United States, and with some strange mix between conservation and development. That's probably the most.
Well, hold on; those are not mutually exclusive.
I agree.
You know, actually, the word conservation is deeply misunderstood by our current people, because conservation actually means considered use of. It doesn't mean the not use of.
Right.
People mix that. They don't understand. Like, yeah, the conservation means like using, but with information. Right. Whereas it's been now and today it means not touching.
That's the point we try to make. Like we're trying to say, you know, it's important to preserve America's natural beauty, because why would we not appreciate it? I mean, we have it, but there's also real benefits. And if we are able to, you know, not just bulldoze everything, but actively manage it, then that's better for everyone. You get the best of both worlds. And some people just don't get that. And
no, they don't. The entire there is no right-wing conservation at all, really, anymore, right? I mean, most people would think that that's an oxymoron, which it's totally not. I mean, the Sierra Club used to be pretty conservative. I mean, it used to be about it used to be, you know, and then there was a whole rift in the Sierra Club where half the people got kicked out for being racist. Do you know this?
Yeah.
So it's like the Sierra Club used to be pretty understanding of hunting and use of lands. And, you know, it was about conserving the land, cultivating it. Whereas there was, not long ago, in the 80s or something, maybe even later, there was a huge rift between people who were against immigration, sure enough, and pro-immigration. And of course, all the anti-immigration people were called, oh, so you won't want it to only be for white people. And of course, like every other NGO, it got completely wokeified and is now about, you know, being gay in the wilderness.
I think they're going bankrupt now too.
Well, can you go bankrupt as a NGO? Is that even possible?
You can. I think there's some settlement against them. They owe it a ton of money. It's more money than they have. Wow. So they're kind of screwed, I think, in the long run. What's
the settlement?
You know, I would have to check. Because their whole thing is frivolous environmental lawsuits, and I think someone finally struck back at them, and they're going to go through it, which is, I think, better for everybody, because the Sierra Club is probably single-handedly one of the most destructive groups in America, because they'll just the funny way these environmental protection laws work right now is there's some loopholes that just allow them to sue with and the companies are they throw up their hands I don't want to build here then if you're just going to sue me every single time and not give me any break. Because when they're writing these impact reports, these environmental impact reports, all these people have to do is say you missed something, and they take them to court, and then they have to write it, and then when they finish that, they'll be like, oh no, you actually missed this part too, and so on with literally no end date. And destructive. So we'll be better off if they quit.
Totally. I mean, all of that whole system got taken over by consultants and then like woke people, and it's horrible. Okay, so it seems like your platform, you're saying fair trade, conservation, higher. You said minimum wage or something.
We want fair trade. We want like conservation and stewardship. We want to revitalize the American community, and we want more and cheaper energy. Is basically what it comes
more cheaper energy. And does that include nuclear?
Yes.
Okay, so pro-nuclear, and also you said bring back American manufacturing, obviously.
Yep.
So pro-tariffs?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right, so basically you're like the anti-neocon, anti-neoliberal American conservative, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, okay. It's the weirdest thing too, because we're one of the only groups here that is like that. Most of the ecosystem is still like very much in the old ways.
Yeah, just no anything, no rules at all. Wow. Okay. So but this does seem to be like doesn't this seem to be growing? I mean, this consciousness, it seems like all the discourse that I see on the right is people sort of talking themselves into having to stand up for stuff like tariffs, or having to stand up for stuff like economic protectionism at certain levels. So do you think that it's a growing trend?
I do. There's with the tariffs, right? I mean, there's always going to be specific nitpicks on policy, but I think fundamentally the number of conservatives that are in favor of using tariffs as a tool to achieve like a specific end goal is growing. Now they may not. There's some people that may not be comfortable with a flat tariff rate, but I think that they are at least more comfortable using tariffs in general, which I see as a positive development. That number is growing. There are more candidates running out there on the federal level that are pro-tariff. I guess the big question is, will they continue to be pro-tariff after 2028? I think that's an open question as to how many of the Republican conference in particular might kind of walk back or disengage from that part. But I do think that there's a growing component of members of Congress, for example, that do believe in this and are willing to actually work on new policy and not just revert back to the status quo.
So how does a group like yours bring about change?
That's a
very broad
question.
Good question.
I mean, there's like the typical tank stuff, right? That people produce white papers that nobody reads. They produce reports that nobody reads. We do a little bit of that. I would not to the frequency that some do. We do write a fair amount. Most of it is like in smaller, op-eds, like 600 to 1,000 words, more digestible for people to read. But we're largely in the influence game. Like a lot of what we do is, especially in growing our social media presence, it is a signal, right? It's if the Bull Moose Project is supporting this bill or this type of policy, and the Bull Moose Project, and that they're America First conservative, then it must be a pretty decent policy. Maybe not perfect, but pretty good. And what we're able to do with that is take our brand, take our message, and meet with people who are writing these, who are kind of engaged in the day-to-day of this legislation and this political process, and talk to them a little bit more specifically about what we like and don't like, but most importantly, lend our platform to what they're trying to do. So
that's called lobbying, right? What you just said, that's lobbying.
Yeah, we do a little bit of lobbying.
But what is lobbying?
So
what does that actually mean? Is it called lobbying because you're waiting in the lobby? Is that why it's called that?
I actually don't know.
I don't know either. I don't. It's not you. I have no idea. I assume that it's like you're waiting in the lobby, waiting to like talk to someone. But
that wouldn't surprise me. There's a really technical definition of lobbying. It's like if you are meeting with staff or members of Congress and you are explicitly saying, like, vote for this bill, don't vote for this bill, or change this specific section in this bill, and you do it for more than 20% of your work or like your time, that is lobbying. Then you have to register as a lobbyist. We don't lobby more than that period that would require us to register for anything.
But what does it actually do? What for more than 20% of your time?
Like, for example, like literally having a meeting with staff, like coffee, office meetings, virtual meetings. If you are sending emails, that counts.
Staff, but like what's staff?
People who work in a congressional office.
Got it. Okay.
Like people who work for the member directly, or like someone who works directly for a committee or something like that.
I see. Yeah. So why do people listen to lobbyists at all, though? Like, if you are a member of so-and-so's office on the Hill and you get an email from blah, blah, lobbyist, why do you even listen at all?
So I'll say for us first, because we're not, again, technically, like we don't lobby in that sense, but what helps us is that we are an advocacy group. Like to these staff, to these members, we represent an important constituency in the conservative movement. That's why they listen to us. For a company lobbyist, or like a sectoral, like a trade association lobbyist that has a bunch of companies involved in it, all that stuff. They listen for a couple different reasons. One, it may be an important sector of the economy or an important business and some members' district. Like if you, for example, like TSMC, they're building a fab in Arizona. So the person who represents that area is, probably like they want that facility there most likely. And so they'll, want to make sure that they're happy and that nothing is going to harm that. Sometimes, like there are some people that, you as a member of Congress, you spend a lot of your time raising money, and these people cut checks. And that's how they kind of get their foot in the door. So that certainly plays a role in it. I like to think in the most positive world, people listen to lobbyists because those lobbyists represent important industries or companies, or people like lobby for Catholic groups, right? So if you're a Catholic or you care about that, then you'll want to listen to those people. That's the positive side. Now the downside is you may have people in there that listen to lobbyists because they want their money and they'll just do whatever. And I would also say, kind of an aside, some of it is technical expertise. Like if you're working in a really technical or niche industry,
you want the information.
You'll want information, but the staff will also want to figure out, like, how does this actually affect you as a company? Mm-hmm. Like if we write this regulation in this way versus this way, what is the difference? Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of that as well, because there are many excellent technical people on the Hill, not nearly enough though, and they're not paid nearly enough. So they end up relying a lot on outside, like private sector people for guidance and support.
Right. Yeah, but it's all interesting. Right? It's all, mm-hmm. The information is tainted because it's manufactured for a reason, or it's there for a reason. Okay, so so again, are you seeing in DC more and more people? I'm assuming that how did you arrive in your role?
Well, I like to say, and this is kind of, I'm half joking, but the Bulmus Project was a fluke. Originally we started it in right after the 2020 election. So it was spring of 2021. People were demoralized. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know. I mean, at this point, we didn't even know what was going to happen with Trump, if he was going to run again, if he was, if it was over for him or anything like that. And so it was myself, and I think we had, at least a dozen other like younger, like populist conservative guys, and we were all talking to each other, and we were trying to figure out, what can we do? Like, I was in college at the time, right? Like, I'm a younger guy, and we were trying to figure out what can we do to help push this along. What can we do to help promote this movement that we believe in, that we think should be the future, and avoid going back to what we believe was a losing path. And we ended up, again, creating an organization like with C4 status is not too difficult. So we threw something together. We had an amazing name, and we literally just started posting on Twitter.
Really?
That's where we started.
And that's what the existing account of Bull Moose Project is, that same
Yes.
thing.
Yep.
Nice.
So we posted ourselves into where we are now. That's kind of like the flippant answer, right? But we were able to grow our platform, especially focusing like then on the big tech censorship, like going after big tech companies. We were able to build such a interesting following that for some reason included a lot of Hill staff. And then we were able to start talking with those Hill staff, and then start talking with the members, and they would come to us and say, hey, what do you think of this bill? We're like, hey, can you help us promote this? We think you would really like it. And so we entered this period of, we just built our reputation brick by brick. And along the way, we started being able to actually be advocates for our followers, for people who believed in this, and find people who wanted to support our mission as well. And so we were able to grow. Now I think we have 6 people on our team, some varying status, who are committed to the mission and helping us do all this stuff.
So that's a great origin story. That group of guys that you're talking about in college, so yeah, you are very young. What were you reacting to? I'm trying to understand, like, were you all sitting around in 2020? I mean, I was also very demoralized then. Were you guys all kind of sitting around thinking, man, were you blaming the Republicans? Were you basically saying, like, man, this platform sucks? Like,
yeah.
Why did you coalesce around this? What was like the mistake that had happened in 2020 that you were reacting to, I guess?
One of the central themes was really on, like, it was big tech focus, right? Because we know this, they for a long time silenced conservatives, and not just personal accounts. They went after Trump, they went after elected officials, they went as far down as like Republican digital fundraising. Like, we know that Google de-preferenced Republican fundraising, so it would go to spam. Meanwhile,
is that true?
Yes. The Democratic digital fundraising emails were fine. Like, some of them were spam, of course, but like there was a higher like ratio of Republican emails going to spam than the Democrat ones. And we came to the conclusion basically that one of the reasons that they were able to, and this was before Elon bought Twitter and made it X, one of the reasons that they were able to do this was literally because they were monopolies. Like, they were the access point. They could do whatever they wanted, and we weren't able to do anything about it. And so antitrust really was like that central theme of, we're just trying to get Republicans to admit to themselves, like, we actually do need proactive government action in some areas. Otherwise, we will get screwed over. It started with the censorship and all of this. But I think it applies, broadly speaking, throughout the economy, and really as a governing philosophy for Republicans. That's what we were reacting to. We didn't think Republicans were actually willing to govern effectively.
To regulate the tech companies, more or less.
Right,
So
right.
that was basically it. Yeah, well, and then isn't it amazing to think only 4 years later, who was it at inauguration? It was like five of those tech companies. It was Google there. Was Sergey and Larry, were they at that thing? If so, shame on them. Ridiculous. And Zuckerberg totally flipped.
Zuckerberg, Bezos,
Yeah.
Jensen Huang from NVIDIA.
Right. And then, of course, Musk. But I wonder, was Larry and Sergey, did they at least have the decency to not go? I feel like they maybe were there. But anyway, so wow. So antitrust. You have a cool quote on the you're doing a conference about antitrust. I'm a big believer in antitrust. I really like, and it's kind of a genius idea. It's kind of a weird idea, right? It's very anti-competitive, quite obviously. I mean, in a way, it's ultimately anti-competitive and ultimately competitive because you're guaranteeing competition, right? So it's this very unique sort of law, and it's very American. It's like a very American law that I deeply believe in, and I think it's really, really healthy. But in his day, Teddy was sort of reacting to this thing he called trust that I don't think that exists anymore. So what was a trust? We're not talking about like a trust like that, like a person has, right? So
No.
what was a trust in his era, and what was antitrust law?
I mean, the trusts were like these. It was the oil and rail company, or sorry, it's steel and rail, not oil. The steel and rail company, like these massive companies, and like the Mellons and the the quote unquote robber barons who ran them, who created them, and were able to relentlessly, they broke strikes. They didn't pay a whole lot in wages. They decimated their competition. These are the people that they were the ones that created the hostile takeover of companies, and so they were just huge. That's what a trust was, just a massive monopoly in the steel or the rail industry, and it was a problem, particularly rail actually, for the farmers. And in American history, farmers, agriculture, these were kind of the center of a lot of the populist movements. Going back to, I mean, it was like William Jennings Bryan in the late 19th century. Like they had Andrew Jackson too was like vaulted into power by these farmers, by like more agriculture, the yeoman farmers. And if you had a monopoly in rail, they were saying, they would get screwed out of a bunch of money because they had nobody else to take their products to port. And Theodore Roosevelt, he did not want people to be taken advantage of, right? And you see this theme in his politics across the board. And I don't know if you've read the Edmund Morris trilogy, the biography of TR. I would heavily recommend it. It's fascinating. But throughout his life, you see like genuine care for the common man. It's kind of like a paternal instinct, honestly, because he wanted to take care of people. He wanted to give people a baseline from which to live and not live in like squalor and filth. But most of his philosophy was really pushing people to be successful. And the only way you can have your society be successful is if you compete against each other, right? If you have an incentive to do the best work you can and get paid for it. And these trusts were just destroying the opportunity of the workers and eliminating competition. And this was not an unknown problem. The Sherman Antitrust Act came before TR, and he was really one of like the first person to start using it in a very aggressive way against these companies. And also Taft too, following him, was a very, very strong antitrust enforcer as well. So it fits in with the theme of the early 20th century of just Americans were